Hello and welcome to this in-depth review of the Steinberg UR22. First things first, all the audio you can hear in this video is being recorded with the interface, so this should give you an idea of the sound quality and if it's good enough for what you want to do with it. In the 6 months I've been using this interface, I've found quite a few strengths, but also some ugly weaknesses. One of them being a clipping issue if you want to record guitars. While there is a workaround for that, it does require you to buy additional items and also have a little bit of DIY spirit. So we will also look at how those issues and weaknesses compare to other interfaces in this price range. But more on that later. Right now, let's look at the specs. I don't know if you can actually see in the video, but the cover of the unit is fully metal. While that gives the unit really high quality feel and a really awesome feature, the front panel tells a different story. The knobs and the inputs are just plain plastic, and also the inputs are kind of loose. So while I don't think that those will die on you, it just would have been nice to see the high quality from the case also being built into the inputs. The Steinberg features 2 inputs, and of course both can be recorded at the same time. Each input is a combo input, so you can use microphones as well as instrument cables for guitars and bass guitars. While you could plug your guitar into channel 1, you can only activate the high Z function, which is supposed to be used for guitars, on channel 2. So if you want to record your guitar, you can only record one guitar at a time, since you will need the high Z function to get the proper sound. Above each input you have a peak indicator. And of course the light flashes when the signal is clipping. So if the signal is clipping, you have to reduce the gain. And of course you can adjust the gain on each channel individually to reach the perfect volume for your track. So let's move on to the last 3 knobs of this interface. First up is the mixing knob. And if you turn it all the way to the right, as it's set right now, you only hear the processed sound that your DAW sends back to your interface. And if you turn it all the way to the left, you only hear the clean signal from your microphones and instruments. However, I never use this feature, since all I record is my voice or my guitar. And if I record my voice, I don't want to hear myself talking. And if I record my guitar, I want to use amp simulators. So it's always all the way to the right on DAW. In the middle is the headphone knob and the headphone output. And for the output you will need a 6.3mm cable or have an adapter like that one to use your standard 2.5mm headphones or speakers. If you want to use headphones, you're good to go, since the volume is already painfully loud at 50%. However, if you want to use speakers, you want the signal to be as strong as possible. However, you cannot turn the volume all the way up, since the signal starts to distort when you pass the 3/4 mark. So it gets unusable, and you will have the same problem on the output on the far right. So finally, let's move on to the back of the unit. And as you can see, the only thing you need to power it is a USB connection. And I think that's a pretty cool feature, because you can just plug it into your laptop or notebook and you got yourself a field recorder. I mean, yes, you won't be running around with it, but you can record some ambient noise or, let's say, a grand piano without the need of a real power supply. So if you have access to a laptop or notebook, I think it's a pretty cool feature. Next up is the phantom power. In case you don't know, phantom power is a requirement for condenser microphones, like the one I'm using right now, or you saw me using in the intro. Since the switch for the phantom power is placed in the back, it's kind of hard to access. And I think there would have been enough space in the front to place an additional button and have all the controls being accessible from the front, so that's kinda a usability flaw. Next up is the MIDI in and out. At the time I bought the unit, I didn't know, but pretty much any keyboard or synthesizer supports USB on their own, so you can plug them into your computer without the need of an interface. So that's kinda not a selling point anymore, unless you got a keyboard that only has MIDI. But if you buy one today, it's most likely to have a USB connection. And finally, on the far right is the line output. And for that you will need active speakers. But if you're like me and you don't have any active speakers, you can grab a 6.3 to 2.5mm adapter and connect your normal headphones or speaker to the output in the front of you. So now that we are familiar with the interface, let's get into the clipping problem. But let me explain what I mean. When I got the interface, I of course knew that you're supposed to use the high Z function if you want to play or record guitar. So I plugged my guitar cable into channel 2, lowered the gain to minimum and activated the high Z function. And to test the clipping, I started strumming some chords, like so. And in hope you could see in the video that the clipping LED is actually flashing from time to time. So that means the signal is clipping. And my understanding of the high Z function back then was that it's just raising the gain on the channel. So I deactivated the high Z function and then I was able to raise the gain without the signal clipping. So this is what it sounds like. And you might say, well, that sounds pretty good, and I would agree. But let me show you why you actually want to use the high Z function. So now that we've heard the difference, let's look at why the sound is altered in the first place. And that has to do with impedances. The impedance on the normal preamps is at 20 kiloohms. And when you activate the high Z function, it changes to 1 megaohm, which is the appropriate value for your guitar. And you can think of it that way, that the higher the impedance, the brighter the sound, and the lower the impedance, the warmer the sound. However, you want to use your guitar with a proper impedance, of course, or at least have the option to activate it. However, when you activate the high Z function, the gain range on your input changes as well. Before you activate the high Z function, the gain range is from minus 16 decibels to 30 something. The important value here is minus 16, because it means that you can lower the signal strength coming into your interface. However, when you activate the high Z function, that gain range changes from 0 decibels to 40 something. And again, the important value here is the 0 decibels, so the first one. Because that means that you cannot lower the signal strength, and therefore clipping issues will occur. So if you want to check if the interface you're interested in has the similar issue, you have to check for the gain range on the unbalanced input, which is basically the high Z function. So now we know why the signal is clipping, so let's look at how we can prevent the signal from doing so. And for that we of course have to reduce the signal strength somehow. And I did a little bit of research and found two options to do that. The first option would be to buy a DI box, which is basically a little box where you can plug your guitar into one end and then connect that to your interface with an XLR cable, and therefore use the normal preamps. And since you're using the normal preamps, you can reduce the gain and therefore you have a non-clipping signal. And at the same time, because you're using the DI box, you get the proper impedance for your guitar. However, those DI boxes can be quite costly, and for a good quality one, you pay even more than you pay for your interface. And even the cheapest ones are priced around 40 euros. So let's look at option number 2. For option number 2, you will need a little bit of DIY spirit and some resistances. because you will solder them to your cable, as you can see right here. And if you have a little bit more experience with soldering, you will most likely be able to fit the cap of your cable back onto your cable, and nobody will even see that it's not a normal cable. But I doubt that you can see which resistances I soldered in here, nor how I soldered them in here. So I will put up the soldering scheme right now, and if you're interested, there's also the link to the post where I found this fix, and there you can download the picture and use this fix on your own cables. And I've been using this for 3 or 4 weeks now, and it works really well for me. The signal gets reduced by around 20 decibels, and that should be enough for pretty much any guitar or pickup, even though you activated the high Z function. And I didn't even tell you the best thing about this fix. It only cost you 20 cents. So it's pretty much for free. The only it's not a downside for the fix, but it's kind of disappointment that they couldn't invest those 20 cents and build those resistances right into the unit itself. So yeah, but that is how to fix the clipping issue you will have if you want to record guitar with this interface. And from what I've read, there are actually quite a few interfaces in this price range who have similar issues, so you can use that fix for those interfaces as well. If you not have yet bought an interface and you don't want to get into the soldering here, you can look at interfaces which are specially designed to record guitar, such as the ones made by Pod. For example, the Studio UX2. Let's have a look at the preamps now. From what I've read, they're supposed to have a real high quality, and that preamps with that high quality wouldn't be built in interfaces that cheap, usually. However, I have nothing to compare them to, so take that information with a grain of salt. What I can give you are some of the facts. And that is, if you have nothing connected to your interface, and then you turn the gain all the way up, the noise floor is around minus 50 decibel. And that is nothing that I can notice. And I doubt that you can. And the people who listen to your music won't be able to notice that. So you're good to go here. However, when we repeat the same test with a high Z function on, the noise floor changes to minus 20 decibels with the gain all the way to maximum. And that is definitely noticeable. Especially if you want to process the sound further on, or even use something like an amp simulator that introduces noise on its own. So then the signal is pretty much unusable. But since the first thing we did when we activated the high Z function is to reduce the signal, I don't think that you will ever have the need to actually raise the gain that high that you will run into that problem. So I think the quality of the preamps is pretty good, but I think you should judge for yourself listening to this video or other videos I've done, because all I've been using is this interface, so everything you hear will be recorded with that interface, and so you will be able to judge if the quality is good enough for what you want to do with it. So let's jump to a conclusion here. I think once you've fixed the high Z problem, you got yourself a great interface for both microphone and guitar recording. However, right out of the box, it's not really usable to record guitar. And that's a big deal for me, because I've been using this interface the wrong way for about 5 months. So I spent a lot of time recording with a muddy guitar signal. So to prevent you guys from doing the same mistakes, I made this video. So I hope this could help you out. If it did, I would appreciate it if you would leave a like, or even better, watch some of my other videos. Also, if you have any questions regarding the interface, feel free to comment or message me. Furthermore, I also plan future gear reviews, so stay tuned for that, and thank you for watching.